Thomas, what I want to ask you as technical manager in Munster, I'm very conscious of the confidence people have with AI, confidence we have with fertility in bulls and so on. And I think when I say fertility in bulls, I mean their conception rate, what they're able to achieve out in the field. Just give me a little bit of background in how we're picking bulls and how we're managing that in terms of putting semen into the marketplace.
Yeah, I suppose we call it field fertility, Martin. So this is something we monitor for all the bulls on a continuous basis, and that's their ability to put cows and calf in the field on a continuous basis. So that is something we monitor. If a bull has poor field fertility, we don't use them. Even though it might be a very good bull, we take the decision not to use them because.
So will you drop a bull out of circulation if you're finding in the season that conception rate is not working correctly for you?
We will, even during the season or before the season. We might take the decision to actually leave a bull out based on poor field fertility. So I suppose it's something for herd owners to be aware of, that we are continuously monitoring that.
Okay, and that's a responsibility. We look at that responsible breeding, not to have bulls out in the field that will provide risk there in terms of the
exactly, sure. Like it's one thing getting high genetic merit sires into a herd, but the other big piece is maximising the 6-week calving rate, minimising the empty rate. So we want to get a high conception rate from our side. The farmer wants a high submission rate. If we can get a high conception rate, we're going to achieve that high 6-week calving, and that really drives the whole system as regards days and milk, compact calving.
Some people want to use G1 bulls or test bulls. What's our advice there?
Yeah, so obviously the Gene Ireland programme, that limits. So we want to test these bulls because we need these bulls coming into the breeding programme to be the sires of the future. But we want to test them in a responsible way. So that means getting them out to a big spread of herd owners, using them through the technician service over a large number of herds, and using a pack of, so it's a pack of bulls, goes out, so it's maybe 7 by 7, 49 straws, so there's no bull going to be overused in any one herd. So these are bulls, they're young yearling bulls, they've passed all the laboratory tests, but we don't know how they're going to perform out in the herd, either from a genetic point of view or a fertility point of view. So that's why we want to use them responsibly.
Okay, so people can join the Gene Ireland programme, or they can get a limited amount of test bulls in their tank.
Exactly, so the Gene Ireland programme is the first port of call anyway, and we release a small amount of them on top of that because we want to just get enough used to have good confident figures for the following year.
Okay, might follow a little bit with sex then, people again having confidence with using sex semen. What sort of recommendations in terms of precautions to make sure that we maintain herd fertility with sex semen?
Yeah, so look, the product is very good, but what it is, I suppose the semen has gone through the sexing process. The dose and the straw is lower, whether it is 2 million or 4 million. I suppose put some extra precautions in on the herds we're using it in, on the animals we're using it in, and actually how we're using it on the day then as regards timing of AI and selecting the cows.
Okay, so first of all, if we're selecting the herd must be what, Dennis?
Ideally, we want a high fertility herd that's achieving a high 6-week calving rate. Within that herd then, we want to select cows that are calved 60 plus days, that are in good body condition score 3+, that have had no health events at calving or since. Healthy, cycling cows in good body condition score, ideally parity 1 to 4, so we don't want to use it on older cows. They're going to have slightly lower fertility. And just watch the first calvers as well, that they are in good body condition score, that they've coated off. So be a little bit more careful with them. Okay,
so it's a real good nutritional base. We're on a rising plane of nutrition, and also not selecting any cow that is lame or is mastitis or any other issue knocking around.
Absolutely. So we're trying to stack from the herd owner point of view. We're trying to stack all the odds in your favour. So selecting.
Okay. As regards using it, if I'm using sex semen, I'm using maybe 50, 60 straws of sex semen. How many bulls should I have in there in that team?
The exact same rules apply. We want to use a team of bulls, so that's about spreading the risk again, both from a genetic and a fertility point of view. If we're using 50 or 60 straws, we want to use a minimum of 3 bulls, I would say, for that number of straws.
Okay, minimum of 3. And then we're getting into higher numbers or bigger synchronizations, programs and so on with sex. We're looking at even a bigger team, yeah?
Yeah. Increase it accordingly, I suppose, as the numbers go up.
Okay, so mentioning synchronization then, it's getting a bit more popular. It's not for everybody, and we're making choices. We can synchronize heifers or synchronize cows. So maybe in synchronizing heifers, first of all, 1 or 2 key rules in terms of synchronizing heifers.
Whether it is sexed or conventional, I suppose one message is that synchronization doesn't overcome poor management. So the heifers need to be up to their target weight for their genetics. So we'll say if they're a maintenance figure of 10, they need to be over 350 kilos in weight. They They want to be in good body condition score, kind of 3, 2, 5 plus. They want to be, ideally out on grass, on a stable, rising plane of nutrition, gaining weight. So all those things, we want to really stack the odds in our favour, whether it is sexed or conventional, to make sure we get the best outcome.
And you made a nice reference there. Look at the maintenance score within your, or the maintenance sub-index within your EBI to gauge how big your heifers actually should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, that maintenance figure is the genetic live weight of the animal, and the target weight for the heifer at bulling is going to depend on that. So obviously, if the lower the maintenance, the higher the target. There's a nice little calculator online there that Haggish have, that you can punch in the maintenance figure, and it will spit out all the various metrics of the target for the mature weight and the target at breeding.
Okay, so advantage of synchronisation with sexed in terms of timing, because I know, or maybe you can explain it a little bit, there's a difference with the timing of AI with sexed semen.
I suppose one of the challenges with using sexed is we need to be more precise with the timing. So the sperm cells don't last as long inside in the cow. They're also gone through a maturation process during the sexing, so they're kind of ready to go quicker when they get into the cow. So all that means we need to be more precise with our timing. And the rule is 14 to 20 hours after the start of standing heat. Generally what that means for the herd owner is if the technician is coming at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, those cows need to be in standing heat the previous milking, or the previous evening or the previous afternoon from lunchtime up to milking. I suppose one of the advantages of synchronisation then is it allows us to overcome the timing. So those modern synchronisation programs, they're fixed time AI. So for example, that 10-day cow program where AI is taking place from 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock on the day of AI. With sexed, that program is ideal, and maybe there's actually a slight benefit to pushing out the time of AI closer to lunchtime, so going 20, even 22 hours after the last shot of GnRH. So that might help the technician as well. If you have a bunch of cows for sexed semen, maybe on that morning he can come a bit later, he's under a bit less pressure, and spend the time to do those cows for sexed semen.
Just to sum up all of this piece, pick the right cows, get your nutrition right, line yourself up well for having a lot of success with AI, whether you go conventional or sexed.
Absolutely. Basic rules apply, whether it is conventional or sexed. So getting your timing right, having your nutrition right, picking your cows, especially for sexed, picking the cows to give yourself the absolute best chance of success.
Okay, Dennis, we're going to talk a little bit about the AI and sucklers, and there's some fear out there, I think, for people using AI. It's awkward, we might have a smaller herd, it can be working off farm or working part-time, and we don't have time to heat check and so on. Some advantages of using AI, first of all, in our suckler, beef suckler cows.
Oh, I suppose the huge advantages, Martin, is the selection of sires. So you have access to the top sires, not only in the country, but probably in the world, So whatever breed you want, and whatever job you want them to do, whether it is a really easy calving, guaranteed easy calving for heifers to breed, high quality replacements with milk and fertility to be future dams in your herd, or whether it is terminal weaning production, or fattening or whatever. So that selection of high genetic merit animals and the guaranteed calving ease is a huge thing for me.
Yeah, and I think that guaranteed calving ease is always in our mind. The two of us are vets talking about this. The one thing in our mind is pulling out these very, very big beef calves, and that as a knock-on effect really slows down how those cows go back and calf.
It has a huge knock-on effect on their fertility. If they have a difficult calving, it's going to knock a lot out of them. They're going to be slow coming back cycling, and particularly at heifers. And there's a huge advantage to actually calving in your heifers at 2 years. So if you can grow them well, get them up to target weight, and then use the correct AI sire in them, so the likes of maybe Knocktown Rye, really, really easy calving. If they have an easy calving, they'll get up and running, get going with their calf, and they'll have a great chance of going back and calf again.
Because it seems a lot of things with suckler cow management, breeding, and that profitability is we are calving our heifers a little old. We are not getting the numbers of calves per cow that we should get in our lifetime. So there's a real drive here to get this breeding better. Is that fair enough?
There is. Sure. Look, I think that is really where we can gain efficiency is to calve our heifers at 2 years. There's no reason why we can't do it, and also to pull back the calving interval. So to try and get a calf out of each cow every year. And I suppose the challenge there is the time from calving to getting them back in calf is actually quite short. So we've only 70 or 80 days to get them back in calf so that they'll calve within 365 days. So there's a lot of things we need to get right, management-wise, to try and achieve that.
So a key thing, and I'm thinking back here straight away into some Michael Diskin's work at the time, was that body score of that cow calving down, and her body score, maintaining her body score before you put her back in calf.
Yeah, so
how significant?
It is absolutely critical in sucklers that they're in decent body condition score at calving. And I suppose a rule I use, you don't want them fat because it's going to affect their calving ability, but certainly you don't want them thin because they're going to be much slower to come back cycling after calving. So to try and have them, above 2.5 in decent body condition score at calving, and there's a huge knock-on benefit to that then as regards coming back cycling and going back in calf quickly.
Okay, so we want that fit but not fat cow. I know it's a bit of a classic statement, because in my experience of it, we often overfeed that suckler cow is well overfed by the time she's calving, and then the risk is that she's not on a good plane of nutrition. Exactly,
they can be dry for, depending on when they were weaned. They can have quite a long winter dry, and there's a huge scope there to put too much condition in them. Equally, I suppose if they're on very poor silage, they can be under conditioned, or if they're not weaned that long, if the calf is with them a long time, they can be under conditioned, and that'll affect their future fertility the following year.
Okay, so again, we're back into this piece of heat detecting, getting our AI done right, and a lot of our suckler farmers are working elsewhere and so on. So just maybe a couple of guides around heat detecting and getting cows on heat.
So another thing we have to be mindful of in sucklers is the maternal bond, so that the calf is suckling, and that has a negative impact on their ability to come back cycling. So when the calves are 30 days old, it's worth, if it's possible, to try and break that bond. So try and move to twice a day suckling if you can. So if the calves are in a creep, there's maybe a chance to leave the cows out to grass maybe during the day or something. Equally in the autumn, maybe leave the calves out and keep the cows inside, but to try and break that bond will really, will bring them bulling quicker.
And do you need that visual break? You really need to get that separation between.
Ideally, yeah. But even having a creep area in another shed is going to be a help. But if you can really break it and keep the calf away for 12 hours, so twice a day suckling, that really they do come in.
And I'm sure some guys have just rolled their eyes to heaven on that one. But actually, it is practical. It is very doable.
Yeah. When you see people doing it and the simple, simple systems they have to do it, it is possible to do it. So like in the autumn there, having a door on the creep and the calves head off out and nibble away a bit of grass, it's great for their health. They're getting a bit of grass into their diet, and it's also breaking the bond.
And in your experience, Dennis, how quick are those cows then starting to come to you when you've established those breaks?
Yeah, tis amazing actually. They'll actually start, you'll visibly notice the heat start to go up. If you can break that bond, they'll come in cycling quicker. And I suppose the next challenge then, Martin, is heat detection and actually detecting these cows. So really you need to put on some kind of heat detection aids. The obvious one in suckler cows, they're big heavy animals, is tail paint. They're often a bit hairy, so there's an advantage there, I think, to get your clippers, clipping the tail head, putting on a nice strip of paint. A lot of people are part-time, they're not going to be around, but at least if you come back in the evening, then you can have a quick look around and see who's missing the tail paint, and they're the ones then for AI.
For AI, okay, excellent. So, okay, we're heat detecting. Another, I suppose, part of our armory here is synchronisation with these cows. Explain maybe a little bit. Again, people will be afraid of synchronisation. It's a complication. How can we do this? Is it simple to do this with suckler cows?
It is. I suppose the modern program that's there now for suckler cows, it's a 10-day program. It ends in fixed time AI, so that's a huge advantage. So there is no heat detection. So at the end of the 10 days, it's fixed time AI. You have your technician booked. So he's going to be in the yard, and all the cows are AI'd on the one day.
That is really, if I'm working off farm, if I'm doing this part-time, if I'm doing this at weekends and so on, I have a real opportunity here to book in that AI to can plan all this, yeah? Is that fair
absolutely,
to say?
Yeah. So I suppose start at the end, book your AI technician, make sure the bulls that you want are in his pot. Next person to talk to is your vet to start off the program. So that 10-day program, it involves putting in a PRID or a CEDAR at the start and an injection of GnRH. On day 7 then, at the same time that you're going to be AIing, the CEDAR is pulled, the CEDAR or the PRID is pulled, they get a shot of prostaglandin, they get a shot of a drug called ECG or PMSG, and then 3 days later, it's fixed time AI and they get another shot of GnRH.
So we have 3 events here.
3 events. So that program is specifically designed for sucklers to try and minimise that, because these animals aren't going to be coming into the crush or coming into the yard. So the program is designed to minimise the handlings. So 3 handlings and all your animals are inseminated.
Okay, and not crazy expensive. I'm not looking for an exact cost or anything, but
No.
it's not crazy expensive.
Yeah, not crazy expensive, yeah.
We go from there from that synchronization piece. Some people, their fear straight away is, oh, if I do that, all these cows are going to calve together. I'm going to have a nightmare. It's going to create a lot of work for me. Is that the case, or is there a spread, Dennis?
Yeah, no, I do it at home, in the sucklers at home, both in the heifers and the cows, and they don't all calve the one day. You know, there's a spread. It could be 2 weeks from start to finish. You know, so there's a spread there when they calve. So don't be afraid of all the animals calving together anyway. That's not something to be afraid of.
Just recapping our advantages again. Our advantages in doing AI for these sucklers.
Oh, I suppose number 1, you'll tighten up your calving. So it's going to bring cows that aren't bulling. It's going to bring them bulling. You know, so you're going to tighten up your calving. They're all going to be submitted and AI'd on the one day. There's a huge advantage then that you can actually pick up the repeats. So put on your heat detection aids. 18 to 24 days, a very small window. So you should have no bother picking up the heats. And it's the choice of bulls then, you know. And one of the biggest things in sucklers in my experience is if they can have an easy calving, the workload for yourself is easier, the management is easier, the calf gets up and sucks if there's an easy calving. As regards fertility, they're going to come back bulling, they're going to go back and calf, and the whole system is going to be easier and more profitable.
Conception rates okay after sinks?
I suppose, look, you're expecting 60 plus in the cows. And heifers, again, like there's a real opportunity there to use synchronisation in heifers. It's a shorter program. It'll be on our website or whatever anyway, and your vet will know about it. And there's a real opportunity there to use AI in your heifers and use easy calving bulls with high reliability. So you're almost guaranteeing them an easy calving, which gives them a great chance to stay in the herd.
Thank you, Dennis.
No bother, Mark.